Two women arrested after a police officer suffered a brutal head injury while trying to stop one of the women from fleeing the scene. The police officer was sent to the hospital for a head injury and remains in serious condition. When the officer handcuffed 22-year-old Melissa Bell, Butler, who was also going to be arrested, bolted for the car. The officer tried stopping her, but sadly fell from the car. Butler was charged with intoxication, assault, and evading detention. Bell is facing charges including public intoxication, resisting arrest, interference with public duties, and assault on a peace officer. The officer is in stable but serious condition. Now, as always, I'm going to try to get you guys the full clip, but if for some reason YouTube flags it and I have to either cut it short or put a lot of blur on it, I will put a link down below in the description, but this is the clip of the injury.
Free, look how she took. Oh, she's trying to run.
Get in the car.
Oh, she gone.
So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is I'm seeing a lot of hate for the officer on Twitter, which doesn't completely surprise me. Twitter is a toxic place, but I feel like I fall on the opposite side of things. I don't necessarily blame the officer, but at the same time, I do feel like there is some blame to be held there. So before I dive too far in, I want to replay the video so you can see that the woman definitely shows that she is aware of the officer being there. So at this point, she had just gotten into the car and you can see that she's looking down, probably changing gears. But as the officer jumps up on the back, she notices as she starts to drive away and decides to completely speed off. So in my opinion, this defeats any argument that people have that she didn't know the officer was there and so it shouldn't be her fault. However, I do want to dive into who takes fault if you're fleeing an officer and why it could partially fall on the officer themselves. So the first thing that we look at is the suspect's actions. The fleeing suspect is generally considered liable because their decision to run from police initiated the chase and created the dangerous situation that led to the officer's injury. However, police conduct is also a part of it. If the police officers engaged in a chase that was deemed excessively dangerous or violated department policies, a court might find the department partially liable for the officer's injuries. Aside from that, there are a few other factors that come into play, like severity of the crime. If the suspect was fleeing for a minor offense, the police might be more likely to be held partially liable for pursuing them. Road conditions, if the chase occurred in hazardous conditions, it could affect who is held more responsible, and then department policies. Whether the police followed their own pursuit guidelines will be a key factor in determining liability. Now, knowing all of that doesn't give us an 100% answer as to how this is going to go, because I still have some questions about why they were being arrested. If you go back to the article, it looks like Butler is the one that was fleeing the officer, which is why he ended up falling and hurting his head, and she was charged with intoxication, assault, and evading detention. Now, the other woman, Melissa Bell, who had nothing to do with the police officer falling, is also being charged with assaulting a peace officer, which tells me that before anybody was fleeing, they had already had an altercation with the police officers, and I don't know if that would be serious enough to where they should chase them if they were to flee, if that makes it more than just a minor crime. So it just kind of depends in the eye of the law, like what that would constitute as. Because if that elevates it from a minor situation to something a little bit more major due to the fact that police officers have been assaulted, then they may have the right to chase, and anything that happens while they're chasing you might fall on you. Again, though, he did jump on the back of a car, which I don't think is normal police procedure. However, I have seen videos before where an officer holds onto a front door of somebody as they drive off, and I'm pretty sure they've been charged with that officer getting hurt, although the officer could have just not have grabbed on in the first place and let them leave. So it seems like a stupid tactic to try to stop somebody, but at the same time, they wouldn't have to try to stop you if you weren't fleeing. So it just really is a gray area. I don't necessarily know how they're going to look at it. It does seem like the majority of Twitter, at least this little niche of Twitter, thinks that this is the dumbest officer ever and it's all on him. You have somebody saying she better beat that case. How the F was she supposed to know he'd do that? And it doesn't really matter what she knows that he's gonna do. It's the fact that you shouldn't run from a police officer because you put yourself into a situation where you can get in more trouble. And that's exactly what might be happening. Another person said nobody told his big ass to jump on the car like that though. I know that isn't in the training. And as far as the second part of that statement, I don't completely disagree with it. I'm pretty sure they were never trained to jump on a car like that in order to try to stop it. So I don't know if that would play into it or if it really doesn't matter because it's just one of those situations where there's high tension, a lot of shit is going on, you're running from the cop and he is trying his best to stop you, and unfortunately he makes a bad move in the process, but I feel like it falls on you for making him him even be in that situation in the first place. And the last tweet that I'll share is another person saying he should have known his fat ass wasn't gonna make that little hop. That's his fault, she's innocent. So as you can see, Twitter is clearly not on this cop's side. However, I wouldn't say it's all of Twitter because there are people that do think that she should be held accountable. The niche part of Twitter that I am talking about right now is unfortunately the black community. And I say unfortunately because it kind of upsets me. I feel like there are a lot of times where we will defend somebody who did something stupid who's black just because they're black. And we feel like the other people have to automatically be wrong. And I don't know if it's trolling or if they genuinely just see things this way, but I don't think that they're right in this situation. There are a lot of times where cops will do some dumb shit and they deserve the dumb shit that comes with it. And I will say that him jumping on the car was stupid, but her fleeing in the first place is what led to all of this. And that was the dumbest shit that she could have ever done. It's not like they're not gonna find you. You live in America. You're not rich enough to where you're just gonna get some private jet out of here and no one's gonna know about it. It's not gonna happen. And even if you are rich, most of the time you still can't do that. So it doesn't make sense to run from the cops. You only end up getting yourself charged with more shit. And the fact that you were already being charged with assaulting a police officer, I feel like this is going to look bad. It's not going to be a minor situation where they're saying that they shouldn't have pursued you. They're gonna say, no, you assaulted an officer, so we had to try to stop you. Yes, he made a bad choice, but he wouldn't have had to make that choice if you didn't put him in that situation. So it's just not a good look. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing wrong with defending our community, but let's not do it at the expense of like intelligence. Let's look at things as logically as we can. Let's try to be unbiased. Let's not just jump out the window in one direction because that's just the way that we feel like we have to do it. It doesn't work that way. So I'm hoping that everybody's okay in this. It sounds like he's stable, but they say serious condition, which means that he might have some long lasting issues. And that also might mean that she's going to deal with some more serious charges. And I don't want to see either of that happen. So let's just try to do better going forward. But I saw this on my timeline. I just wanted to talk about it with you guys a little bit. Let me know what you thought down below. I may still be in the minority on this. A lot of people may comment and disagree with me, and that's totally okay. But I'm very, very interested to see what you guys thought. So let me know, and I will catch you in the next one, homies.